Hey everybody, we're here the 1st of May. So we're recording on an unusual day as far as our schedule, but that's okay. You'll probably see this within a week or so, or we might surprise you and put it out early. But welcome to Press for Time. As usual, I am your host, Benny Rose, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Mr. Tyler Nethers.
What's going
But
on?
today, we not only have one guest, we have two. We're going into another category. I love video games. And Tyler, you have anything to say before we let our lovely guests jump in on this?
No, I'm really excited to have you guys here. We had a little snafu that we cleared up offline before we started this, and I'm really excited to dive into what these guys are doing. So I'll let them introduce themselves and what they do, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, I will kick us off. My name is Justin Scerbo. I'm one of the two co-founders of Crit Rate. I'll pass it off to Justin to introduce himself. But first, I'll just give you a quick background on Crit Rate. Crit Rate is the world's first personality-based game recommendation platform. What we're hoping to achieve is have people come to our website, take a short personality survey, basically, and be sorted into one of our 5 gaming houses, not dissimilar to like Harry Potter houses. And then really what that does is it allows you to get curated reviews based on other people with similar personality types, and then essentially have a recommendation feed of games that are going to be suited just to your gaming tastes. So I'll pass it over to Justin to tell you a bit more.
Yeah, just to confuse everybody who's just listening in, there are 2 Justins on this podcast right now. We call ourselves the Justins, and it works in our favor more times than not. But I am also Justin Chou. Yeah, I mean, the background on us is pretty much we were in the video game media space for a solid like 10 years, since like 2013, just trying to make it in the industry that we love. And then during around 2015 is when Justin and I came up with this idea where we can essentially apply our like guilty pleasure of personality tests and understanding, people, and then trying to dovetail that kind of into gaming. We've learned that at the time, like I had like a guild on Guild Wars 2 of like 120 some odd people, really close knit people. Like I've been to their graduations and I've been to some of their weddings, and it's been phenomenal. But like I learned that we've all played this game, Guild Wars 2, in like hyper different ways. And I was like, okay, if everybody's playing the same game but drawing some value out of it in many different ways, then there's got to be something here that tells me or tells us a little bit about like how we like to play video games, rather than that I'm just a Guild Wars 2 player, right? It's not necessarily about the what, it's about the how. And as Justin and I started going through our research, and at the time, Justin was actually working in another company that did a lot of like personality research, and then bringing in like specific like hires for specific companies. Like we started talking to a lot of their data scientists, and like after a while, we started becoming even more interested in like how this might work. And then over the course of now 8 years, after a lot of testing and a lot of like survey tweaking, we got to a point where we were like, this is really cool, and I think this would be useful for people. And then we brought it to PAX, and now a month later, we realized people are actually interested in this stuff. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been really, really fun. We think there's definitely a new way or a new age of giving and taking in recommendations for video games. I mean, they come out so fast, But that's me, and that's us. How's it going, guys? I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for taking the time and inviting us on the podcast.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah, it's a
super
pleasure.
excited. That's really
I
cool.
love the
So
story. Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
and there's so much, so much of the way people consume media reviews now is divisive. Like
Yeah.
people go in with an expectation of what the game's going to be, and if reviewers give them what they want and match up to that expectation, everything's great. It's like, yes, I knew it. If the reviewer says something negative, they're like, nope, you're an idiot. You
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
So having something organic like this where you can really sift through and find stuff tailored to you, and then see reviews that line up with your line of thinking and give you actual valuable information is awesome. It
Yeah.
seems like a really big step forward for how people consume review content and figure out what is going to work for them, because everybody's pressed for time. I mean, it's the
Press for
world we live
time.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. And it was kind of like the biggest motivator to turn Crit Rate into what it is today. I mean, when we started, like Justin said, we originally had our own media company where we were doing kind of news and reviews and beat journalism and all this kind of stuff. but we started to really pay attention to what was going on as far as like the review scene and like how this kind of stuff was being received. And it seemed like you had people that were falling into different camps, right? Like you had the people that would be really attached to certain authors, and they would like to digest the written content, like, and that was sort of where they were getting the meat of their information from. But then you also had these sort of like more passerby types of consumers that would look at like the Metacritic score, the Open Critic score, and they would just want that number, and then they would dip out, right? And like that was where the recommendation came from. But as Justin and I started to explore this idea, you know, we had this this concept, right? I don't really know if you would call it a concept or whatever, but we called it like the lunch table theory, right? Or when we were kids, you know, we would talk to our friends, like our close-knit people, about the types of games that we're playing, you know, what we rented from Blockbuster that week or what have you. And we would, you know, have these great conversations and be exposed to games in a much more organic way. And what would end up happening most of the time is like you might be playing a game that would be, let's say, a 70 on like a Metacritic or something, but you're having this like fantastic experience with it. And whether that's because it came from your friend or your friends just know you and know the types of, you know, experiences that you're going to respond with more, some matter of that basically led you to having this great gaming experience.
Yeah.
So there was part of us that thought like, you know, there's so many situations where you might be, you know, you might bounce off of a game or not be interested or not give it the time of day when really it could be a great match for you.
Yeah.
And then that combined with seeing how a lot of recommendations were now leaning towards like really personality driven content, YouTubers, Twitch streamers, all this kind of stuff. We were like, I wonder if there's a way that we could take this feeling, this idea, this like lunch table concept and really kind of like blow it out on a bigger scale. And that was really the inception of the Crit Rate idea and really what we hope to accomplish with the platform.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And you're absolutely right. Like even with, you know, Benny and I, he'll sometimes come across a game that maybe comes to our, because we both write for gamingage.com. So we do written reviews, and you know, we get 10,000 emails, like so many emails come through the boxes. It's really hard to sift through and find, you know, in a sea of emails that are like, look at what game is most popular in Idaho right now.
Oh, you're talking about like the
Totally.
press releases?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, dude. We know that inbox scare all the very well.
Yeah. So it's unbelievable. But so a lot of stuff gets missed. So a lot of times Benny will find like an indie game. Like I'm really into Souls likes and you know, old Metroidvania type games and stuff. So he'll find something and be like, hey man, this seems like something that you would be a good fit to review. So that concept definitely fits even among reviewers. Like we'll discuss,
Sorry, you go on.
No, yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just about to say, I mean, with the press releases, it's hilarious because nowadays the press releases they become more prolific with how they try to genreize their game. And they're like, hey, take a look at this. If you like Souls, Metroidvanias, shmups, roguelikes, blah, 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 you'll love this game. And you're like, dude, which one is it? Like, what are you talking about?
That's like 13 different genres. Which one is your game?
Yeah. It was actually cool. So I'm sure we'll get more in detail with it when we get to PAX. But one of the things that we found there, we started having conversation with developers that were kind of seeing what we were doing and getting an idea. And one of the things that really sort of like activated them was saying, you know, when they go to create their listing for their game on Steam or what have you, they're limited to certain genre classifications or categories, right? And this one guy, he was the developer for a game called Everspace 2, which like when you look at that game, like if you just see a screenshot of it, the instant you look at it, you think space sim, right? Like, you know, like you're in a ship, you're flying around. It's like, okay, I think I know what this game is. And he says so often they will have people that will see that and just immediately bounce off because they're like, no, you know, space sims are just like not my thing or whatever. But in reality, their game is actually like a shooter, like a competitive shooter that happens to take place in space as a spaceship. So he's like, you know, it sucks that they'll lose so much of their potential audience just based on a look or a genre tag that's not exactly fair to classify their game as. So when they looked at something that we were doing, it was like it's a lot. It provides another avenue for people to find stuff by, you know, rating a game based on its merits for certain types of people, for certain like personality traits, you know. So that was a really encouraging thing to hear too. And really, I think the hope is to create as many avenues that open doors for gamers and for developers to help find the right audiences, because I think you're right. There is this like insane oversaturation with games right now where it's like almost impossible to find something. There could be a million good games in there that you just might breeze past because there's just too much to process. So now it's like, wouldn't it be great if you had like a curated list based on the way you like to play games and like the gaming habits that you have? That's really
Benny,
like the idea.
Imagine if you were, surrounded by hundreds of other Benny people, and they knew exactly what each other liked, and they're like, it's crowdsourced. What's everybody playing right now? Oh, don't play this game, don't play this game, play that game, play that game, and then suddenly you get like an entire recommendation, list of games that other people like Benny are saying you should consider trying, and then now you have all these games to even look at, right? It was funny because like in the very beginning, like when this all started for us, it was like, sure, we can come out with reviews, but unless they know who the review is coming from, it's kind of like difficult to get traction in that category. And then some media outlets they gain traction because it's like, oh well, I'm Polygon or I'm Kotaku, and as a media outlet, I'm the one telling you about this game. Do you trust me? And it's all about this trust-based relatability kind of like meter almost, right? Then we start looking at YouTubers, right? And we start seeing like YouTubers and people on Instagram and like, well, maybe not so much Instagram, but YouTubers. And then people watch like, whoever they end up watching, and they're like, oh, this person, I relate to this person. I feel their person behind that, like that screen. I'm going to hear what they have to say about games, and then I'm going to put more credibility on that review because I understand them. Well, what if we can like just jump straight from, not knowing somebody to knowing somebody intimately, and then a bunch of those people are now telling you what to potentially play? I mean, I think that'd be a real good way of, getting past the press for time feeling, like now I have a list of things I can look at.
There's a path.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also challenging from our perspective because even though we come from, I would say, a veteran media outlet that's been around for a long time, it hasn't gotten to that point where it's, in that professional realm where people think, like you said, the first thing people say, IGN, Polygon, nothing wrong with that. But again, when you have scenarios of casual gamers that look for reviews and look at Metacritics, they go to specific sites. And a lot of times they go expecting the negative. It's like, oh, this guy's going to say this, or this person's going to say that, versus, hey, let's just see what people that are really passionate about playing it feel about. And I think that, again, you can get so many people in a casual site that love a game that may not have even expected to love it. And that's where I think your outlet would be a great way to differentiate that. Because I've discovered games early on in my time with Gaming Age that I would have never picked up unless it was solicited to me and I took the time to read it. So,
Totally.
Yeah, and think about those big sites don't cover. They cover AAA. That's
right.
The reality
that's
of
what
being
draws
a
the
large
clicks.
site. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the reality of that is so many games get missed and don't end up on an IGN or a Kotaku or a Polygon, or don't end up on Metacritic at all because there's no verified reviews that they can put in there. So having something like Crit Rate where you can go on and get real reviews from other people that have actually played this game could be massive for smaller, indie games or AA games and AAA games, like stuff that doesn't fall in the scope of a reviewer's time or what they're going to discuss.
Yeah, certainly. And it's actually really interesting because as we started to go through this process, and like, I mean, right out of the gate, our initial objective was to, okay, are people going to take this test and like their results? Like, does it feel like they're falling into the right houses? Do they like where they're at? And I mean, we at PAX, we got over 5,000 users, maybe 3 of them were like, I don't agree with my house selection. So we were like, okay, we're on target here. This is good. And then once we started to peel back the layers and they understood like, oh, this house opens up the door to seeing these reviews and communicating with other people that share the same interests as me and all this kind of stuff, it really started to take form. And that was like so awesome to see in real time, especially when we were like at PAX talking to everybody about it. But what was interesting, and to your point too, one of the potential avenues that is open now is just by segmenting people in this way and like bringing them into certain houses. The idea of seeing potentially content from individuals of a certain house, it might resonate way more because, like Benny, you might take the survey, find what house you're in, and then once you start writing reviews and whatnot, the people from your house are going to add another layer of credibility to that because now they know that you're of like-minded or of like minds, you know what I mean? So it's cool to see all of these different opportunities and avenues start to like open. And it really, I don't know, based on the feedback that we're getting from our users and the developers that we're talking to, it's all starting to gel in place, which is really encouraging to see, and at least tells us that we're on the right track and we didn't waste all this time.
So it's funny
Yeah.
because like we have a podcast of our own as well, and one of our guests was Janet Garcia, who used to work for IGN, and now she works for
Yeah.
herself. She works with Kind of Funny and all this stuff, and she is a Curionaut, which I can go through the houses later, but basically her house is more on the experimentation, exploration side. Likes a little bit more slower paced games, like a little bit more storytelling over the mechanics nature of a video game, like and more solo playing type of games. But her outlet, Pen to Pixels, I mean, she's the only one writing on it. So technically speaking, all of the content is coming out from a Curionaut now. So imagine if you have a bunch of Curionauts or even others, right, from other houses are seeing this kind of content come out and they're like, oh, fascinating. The context is almost everything. And now I see these headlines coming out. It's like, oh, that's interesting that this opinion is coming from somebody with these type of values. And then even if I'm not part of the house, let's say I'm personally a Galabander, which is somebody who's more into social gaming. I like the multiplayer aspect of games, more experimentation focused and more on the for fun side rather than competitive. But it's interesting because it's like I can see what she's saying, and then I could be like, well, you know what? My Curionaut side, yeah, I see that she says that this game is good. I'd be interested in seeing this. Like it contextualizes everything that they're saying. It's like I already know Janet Garcia more than I do personally, obviously, because I've only met her a couple of times, but I know her more now just because I'm able to read kind of like her I mean, the back of the card, kind of like the stats on her, you know, like what kind of gamer she is.
That's awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
It's so we're just opening up to the public to see, like, to peek our head out of this 8-year long like hibernation that we've been in. And it's been fascinating to see people come back to us with not just like whoa, this is cool, but also like you know, I would really love this, that, and the other thing. If you can like change up this, or like if you can add in this with the data that you're pulling, like I would love to be able to see that because I think it would be valuable to me in these types of ways. And now Justin and I basically have like a laundry list of things that we need to do as soon as possible because we want to satiate everybody's curiosity. But everybody seems mostly curious about the data, like so curious about the data on the people.
Yeah. It is cool. And it
makes
definitely,
sense.
the recommendation side of it is also very like, I mean, it's kind of the crux of the whole thing. It's like where it all sort of stems from. So it's nice to see people responding in that way and like requesting new games to like be on the site and all this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm curious just for you guys, just because it's an interesting conversation. I mean, Justin and I are lifelong gamers, and you know, we told you a little bit about our sort of like lunch table philosophy, but like typically where do you guys find your games? Like if you're I know that being on the media side, you're probably playing stuff to review and all this kind of stuff fairly often. But you know, where do you sort of like find your lanes when you really like attach yourself to a new game?
For me, mostly from friends. Yeah, that same lunch table philosophy. I've got a core group of friends that, I mean, we've been friends for, you know, almost 20 years now. Grew up together, played games all through childhood and into adulthood. And we have been lucky enough to stay really, really close. And we have
That's
a
awesome.
private Discord server that's just
beautiful.
for us and our adjacent friends. And we get together and play games as often as possible. And typically that's where I find new stuff is in there. Guys will be like, oh, I just bought this on Steam. It was $2 and it was amazing. Or, you know, we talk about whatever AAA games coming out. Like right now we're playing a bunch of Call of Duty. Call of Duty season came out, and it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna play Call of Duty again. So we go through, you know, phases of returning to old games and finding new ones, and just but we all typically move in a group. So
that's so cool. Benny, how about you?
Mine's a little unique. For the most part, you know, the traditional reading, the press releases is where I get a lot of stuff more recently, but I play a lot of the same stuff. So for me, I'm a diehard Resident Evil guy, so I'm kind of the
two of a kind, man. That's my whole world.
I'm the resident Resident Evil editor for most
Yep.
for the most of the stuff on the site. Love zombie games, Dying Light, things like that.
Mhm.
Die Hard Zelda fan, Kingdom Hearts,
Oh
big
yeah,
big time.
Oh, wow.
nice.
But lately, I'd say over the last maybe 10 years or so, I spend a lot of time on Twitter, unfortunately. But I've found a lot of indie developers over the years, and some of my favorite games of the last 5-10 years were discovered from somebody posting on Twitter, like the developer showing some of their animation early on,
Yep.
following them all the way until the game's potential release.
Yeah.
The first game was a game called Hue, if anybody ever played
Yeah.
that game.
Totally. Totally. I
Mhm.
played that on the Vita like way back when. Great game.
Fell in love with that game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually connected with the developers on Facebook, like just amazing experience for me. Um, then there was Ghost Song that recently came out on Xbox.
Hmm.
I was following them for a while, but then Tormented Souls was another big one, which was a survival horror game that was very reminiscent of old school Resident Evil with the fixed camera.
Yes.
And seeing those scenes, picking up that game, reviewing it, loving it, and just one of those scenarios of I would have never discovered it because I
Mhm.
didn't discover it from the press release. I actively looked for the developers
That's
to reach
awesome.
out. So
Dude, that's
yeah,
awesome. Yeah.
That's so cool, man. It's awesome finding games like that I feel like nowadays there's a lot of not I don't want to say like iterative, but they'll like find games that they're kind of like trying to, evoke those same feelings or create a similar like
pay
gameplay loop and
homage,
stuff like
if you
that.
will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I love that kind of stuff. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
So what you call it, Tyler, you were talking about Souls-likes before. Like, did you ever play the Salt and Sanctuary games?
Yes.
Mhm.
Love those.
So good.
Fantastic.
I
Yeah.
love
We talked
that.
to those
I love
developers too.
Blasphemous.
Yep.
All of
Yep.
any of the side scrolling like attempt kind of Souls like, but also Metroidy is just so that's right
I'd
in
say
my
you probably played them all, even the
all of
bad
them,
ones.
Yeah.
even the bad ones. Yep.
One of our other guests or co-hosts on our podcast, Alex, he just got done playing a game called Tales of Iron, which I think falls in that same category. I'm
Okay.
Yeah, it was on PS Plus this month, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, so maybe newer.
That
But
one
yeah,
I don't know,
interesting.
so I might have to try that.
There you go.
Hmm.
Yeah, he said good things about it, so I
Great.
think it's something newer.
So with the gaming houses, give us a rundown of
Okay.
what the different houses are and how you kind of determine who goes where.
Yeah, definitely. I would be happy to. Actually, would it be good? I know this is a video podcast, but like, should I share a screen somewhere?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Put a little
Yeah.
like, all right, hold on, let me just set this up then. But yeah, I can definitely go through the houses with you guys. Just to give you kind of an idea, we sort everybody originally when we were coming up with the when we were coming up with the segments and the segmentation, it was here we go. I will
Yeah.
share my screen right now. When we were going out with the segmentation, we came out with like, I think it was at first like 6 or 7 different criteria. I think I need to get permissions. There we go. All right. So tell me if you can see this, but we started with about like maybe 6 or 7 of these guys. I'm going to try to make this smaller so you can blow it up a bit more.
Perfect.
But yeah. So
Yep, awesome.
I won't read these necessarily, but I'll just go through them really quickly. But our data has been kind of like interestingly breaking down. And again, we can go through the player traits as well, which is down here. But basically through taking the test and answering some of the questions, and the questions run from, like whether or not you're actually interested in the lore behind the barmaiden at the bar, or like, would you rather play a multiplayer game rather than a single player game? How important is winning to you in terms of your enjoyment, things like that. After answering these questions, and there are like a few of them, 40 or so, but they're interesting questions and they're fun to answer. We'll take all of those scores of these particular traits, and then we'll break it down into, we'll find out what house you're a part of. But it's important to know also that we're all actually a shade of all of these houses. We're not just one. Like, even if you fall into like a Gryffindor, there's a little bit of Slytherin back there somewhere. So all in all, we kind of like bring out the first and foremost one, and then from there, we kind of describe what the other ones are too. But I'll go through it really quickly. So the Vantagists, these they're more of our like cerebral kind of like strategy focused players. They like slower paced games. They like a lot higher difficulty challenge, and they enjoy a lot more methodical kind of thinking. Our Curionauts are much more on the experimentation and exploration focused, as I was saying before. They like the slower paced games. They're more story focused, and they enjoy like a single player for fun kind of experience. Ascendiaries, which is what Justin is, it's more of like an achievement based, more like task oriented. They're competitive, but they're competitive in more single player games, which is interesting because then you start finding out that they're more of like the speed runners, the high score chasers, the achievement hunters of the group. Our Galabanders are more of our social players, as I said before, the ultimate teammate. They're more in it for the fun of playing with others, whether it be party games or even cooperative experiences. But in the same sense, they enjoy a lot of experimentation and they also enjoy like slower paced gameplay. And then we have the Bravadeers. They are competitive focused players, right? They are much more on the fast paced gameplay, multiplayer gameplay. They play to win and they like difficult games. They're much more, again, of our more, I would say, like the esport types of players. And it can range anywhere from the methodical thinking games to like, let's say, like a StarCraft to a quick, FPS Twitcher type of game like a Valorant or something like that. But it's been interesting to see how people answer these questions and then fall into their houses. And then once brought into kind of like a spectrum of, they start breaking down each of the key criteria traits even further. And our traits are your competitiveness. And remember, it's kind of like a Myers-Briggs where you fall into either, left side or the right side or somewhere in the middle. And somewhere in the middle doesn't necessarily mean that you're neither of these two. It's more of a balance. But the 7 criteria are how competitive you are, how important is winning to your enjoyment, players, how many players do you usually like to play with? Is video gaming more of a solo journey for you? Is it more of a multiplayer experience? Challenge is a little bit more of like the level of difficulty that you're willing to take on when playing games. So when it says easy, it's more about the experience, less about the frustrations. But for some, like I'm sure Tyler being a little bit more on the Dark Souls kind of like games, it's much more on the methodical, like figuring out how to solve those problems and like overcome those problems is really where the enjoyment comes from. Creativity and strategy both play into a similar portion, which is like how do you like to go about playing the game? So in creativity, it's more about progression. Do you like to stay on the practical side of things where you're going, maybe we're just doing the main story quest or some side story stuff? The experimentation is like in that same game, maybe the experimental player will just walk around aimlessly and start finding random things, kind of like that. Strategy is more like how you like to solve problems. We have the planning or spontaneous, where it's like I like to plan before I act, or am I more like act and then plan as I go? And immersion, breaking those two down. I know this is a lot of explanation, so stop me at any time. But the immersion side is more mechanic focused or story focused. We've learned that people like to get absorbed by the game differently. Sometimes it's about how you play and how you press the buttons and how you like to see those things happen on the screen. And does that feel good? Or is it more story focused? Am I more about the lore and the atmosphere and the tone of the game? And then last but not least is pace. Pace is more on how the game kind of like feeds you content, right? And how we like to engage with those games. Slow paced games are more, you're given a whole plethora of things to do and you can do it at any point you want to. And a fast paced game is more of like, let's say a bit trip runner or something like that, where it's like, you're at this level, this is what you're supposed to be doing right now. And this is what you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to be progressing in the game. And then so between these 7 different criterias, we'll bring you up into one of these 5 houses. Boom. Does that make sense, guys? Did you come to class prepared?
Yes. Apologies. I have a 7-month-old German Shepherd puppy who decided he wanted to chew on my door over there. So I had to go correct him real fast. But no, that's really cool. And I'm absolutely, I can tell you, I mean, I haven't taken the test yet, but I can tell you that Ascendiary is very much where I'm going to fall with a good dose of Galabander there, because when I'm playing social games with my friends, I'm very much a social gamer. But when I'm playing something for myself, power through 100%. I've got so many platinum trophies. I've done all the FromSoft games on all platforms.
I would love to swap PSN information with you because I am a very avid trophy hunter as well. I'm like a hard in Ascendiary. Like I'm pretty sure when we made those houses, it was like based on my personality.
Yeah. I think so on my Xbox, I think I'm approaching like 200,000 gamer score or something. And then I've got a bunch of platinum trophies and I have a bunch of what Steam considers perfect games, which is getting all the achievements in a game. Cool. So I can display all those on my Steam profile. But yeah,
that's awesome. I can't wait for you guys to take the test because I'm really interested in knowing. So like just to give you kind of like once you take the test, you can go into your cool account here, and down here you'll have a readout of what kind of gamer you are. But here is where you'll actually see a kind of a rendition of what your infinities are per house, right? So I am mostly Galabander, but then also high in Vantageist and in Bravadeer, and it's important to read. it's not really clear, but we have to make it more clear. These numbers here aren't necessarily points, and it doesn't add up to 100%. Rather, it's I'm 42% out of 100% Gallibander, or I like am close to 40% Vantageist out of 100, 36, and so on and so forth, right? So it's more of like how close are you to each individual house, not how much of each, right? We'll be changing that eventually, but yeah. So that is that. I'm excited to see what you guys end up scoring on.
Yeah. So as soon as we're done here, we'll take our test and we'll post our results as well.
Cool.
And
I'll have to throw it out there, the fact that I'm the exact opposite of Tyler and I have not won platinum.
Dude, I hear you, man. I feel like you and I felt like I had a kinship with you, Benny.
I'm like right there with Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Yep.
And I've beaten the game 10 times already. And I still haven't gotten it. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to do it.
It's so it's excellent funny, though, right? Oh.
Yo, I love Bloodborne, and I have one more final ending to go through to get the platinum. Don't care.
Do it. No, what do you mean don't care?
I don't know what I was literally on. I was on the stent to do it, and then Justin was like, "Yo, you're one trophy away. It's like the easiest one. You just gotta
especially if it's just the ending. Oh my god, you did all the chalice dungeons. You did all the optional bosses.
You sound like my best friend Justin in this chat with us right now.
The chalice dungeons are the only ones I didn't do.
I did all the chalice dungeons ones. Oh my god, I don't know why I did that.
Tyler, it's a losing battle. I've tried to have these conversations too many times. He won't see the light.
I need your PayPal information. I'm gonna bribe you. I'm gonna pay you to get 100% on Bloodborne.
Oh my god. Oh man, I love Bloodborne so much. Yeah. Speaking of actually, really weird tangent, real quickly. Did you guys see the Armored Core trailer?
Yes.
That was what a trailer, man. What a trailer.
Have you seen the collector's editions?
Yes.
Yes. The mech in the housing warehouse? What?
It's so cool. I know.
So
it's only cool $200.
Yeah. We have a spreadsheet at Gaming Age where we keep track of all the games that are coming out. And the way we sign up for the games we want to review is if you put the game on the spreadsheet, you can put your name on it. And it's basically a first come, first served type of deal. So if it's a game you're really passionate about, you want to quickly get it thrown in the spreadsheet. And the trailer wasn't even done. Like the teaser trailer hadn't even finished, and I was on the spreadsheet like I'm putting my name on this.
That's me with every Resident Evil. Every time it comes out.
Oh man.
Yeah, speaking of not getting 100%, what was it? Resident Evil Village. We were playing through together at like the same time, and Benny's like, "Oh yeah, I've done this and I've done this and I've done this," and I was like, "Yeah, Benny, I got the platinum. I finished it."
Yeah, it was a fun platinum. I'm like, Mercenaries mode in that one was tough though. That was probably the hardest part of that.
It absolutely was.
Yeah,
and doing the knife only was pretty tough too. I'm pretty sure that was Village that I had to do that on.
Yeah, because in 7, that was the one where you got like the little chainsaw thing.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, made it trivial, but so good.
For me, like I take more pride in just like getting a real good flow of those games. And Village is another one I played a lot, and I don't play it for the achievement. I just play it for the enjoyment. And I beat Village on Village mode in an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's good. That's fast.
And it was punishing.
Yeah,
but it's like I have nothing to show for it, because it's not. But I was like, all right, I know I did it.
Dude, I have like a sickness when it comes to this stuff, because like I'm right there with you. I love the Resident Evil games like deeply, right? But I also there has to be a carrot at the end of what I'm doing, or I won't do it, right? So like when Village came out with like the third person mode, I was like, that sounds great. I would love to play it like that, but I have zero reason to do that, so I'm just not going to do it.
No, I'm the exact same way. It was the exact same thing. I was like, man, that's really neat for somebody, not for me.
And for me, it was just it was an excuse to revisit the game, and that's exactly what I did, and I loved
it. I get exactly what you're saying, man. I get exactly what you were saying. It's so funny because Justin will go out and buy terrible games just because they like dropped off of Game Pass and he hadn't finished it, and he was like, I need to finish this.
That did happen one time. That was with Shadows of the Damned. I was playing it on Game Pass because I never.
Game.
Oh yeah, I just had never played.
That's not
a
terrible game.
No, I mean it's like
it's a great game.
It's not great, but
I mean,
it was
I like
one
I
of those
mean,
things
I
where
love those. I love those B style games too.
it was a Suda 51 blind spot for me, and I was like, I
Yes.
just need to like get a little context here. I need to know what's going on, and literally 3/4 of the way through the game, they took it off of Game Pass, and I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? And literally the only option I had was to buy it physically and then finish playing it that way. And I was
That's
like,
the one
I can't.
with the mega boner gun, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Oh
exactly
my
right.
God, that's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
Suda
it was
51 is
they
one of my
pushed
very
the
favorite.
Resident Evil 4 mindset. It was like, oh, Resident Evil 4 mechanics.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
no, Lollipop Chainsaw.
Dude, that's another one of my blind spots. I want to play that, but I think they're re-releasing that one
re-releasing
soon.
it. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, like a remake, remaster.
Yeah,
kinda.
I'll wait for that one for sure. But
I
I've
even
played
got big into
pretty
Let
much
It
all those.
Die when that came out initially.
Yeah, we played Let It Die for a while. Killer
Stan, I
is
think,
Dead,
still
all that
plays
kind of
it.
stuff.
Killer is Dead. Yep.
Let It Die. I remember being, oh man, that was like 2016, I think, when they were like, I remember being at E3 and there was a Suda 51 party that I ended up going to. Bill Burr, I remember, opened up the talk with comedy, which was hilarious. But I remember playing that game and thinking like there were some like Souls elements where people can like invade your game, I think, or something like that. And then I remember playing it because I was such a big Souls fan, and I remember thinking, this game's not that good, guys. I don't think I really want to play this game.
Because I think it had a lot of roguelike
It did.
kind of
Yeah,
elements
it
too.
struggled to
That's a
figure out
turn
what
off
it
for me,
wanted to be.
unfortunately.
Yeah, so I went to a pre-release event, like a press event for the game, out at their studio in California, and got to play it. And I felt kind of the same way. I was like, "Hey, there's something here."
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You gotta dig to find it.
I was excited about it, but interesting. Yeah.
What are you guys playing right now? What's your
great question, Justin.
What's on the docket? Sorry.
So
I host our podcast too, so I just like anytime.
This is great.
I just love asking questions.
This is what we love.
A lot of Call of Duty right now, and I am also clearing out a big blind spot for myself, which is the Persona games, which is a massive undertaking.
Don't do the platinums on those, man. It's a fool's errand.
It's hard. No. Just playing them to finish them. Even that's a bit of a challenge. But yeah, so I got Persona 3 and Persona 4, the bundle to review. And I took the review on as somebody that's never played the games. And I played 3 and absolutely fell in love with it. So finished 3. I'm working my way through 4, and then I'm gonna do 5.
Dude, 5 is sublime. It's like
that's what everyone says.
Good. It's so good.
It's such a funny. It's so interesting because that game is so heavy and like thick, right? But I've turned people who don't play video games into gamers by introducing them to Persona 5, and some of them don't even care about anime stuff. It's like such a good game, and it stands on its own, apart from like some of the art and the style that it has, which is also very good. But game's good.
Yeah. I've
not to hype it up or anything.
Deeply in love. Yeah. No, I think I gave it a perfect score, like the 3 and 4 bundle, because I was just like, man, these hold up so well. Coming from the age that they did. So doing that, and I'm also that new Xenoblade 3 DLC just dropped, and I need to play that.
Very cool.
Xenoblade is such a I have a few friends that are so into Xenoblade 3. And they're so hyped about the DLC dropping. I've tried. Well, actually, I haven't tried. I've tried listening to Justin try playing Xenoblade, and I feel like we just can't get into it.
Yeah, I have a high tolerance for JRPG stuff, like a high tolerance, right?
Yeah.
It's I mean, right next to Resident Evil, Final Fantasy is like it's the top of the mountain. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I'm ready to try any JRPGs that are out there. And the first time I give a swing at Xenoblade, it's just so thick. It's so thick. It's so hard, and it just feels like such an unbelievable mountain to climb that it's like, I don't know. And then the incendiary part of my brain clicks on where I'm like, I could spend 100 hours playing this game, or I could beat 3 other games that I wanted to play in the same time frame. You know?
Yeah.
So that's always been challenging for me.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was late to the Xenoblade party. I didn't dive in until 2. And 2 had been out for a while when I did it. And I'm telling you, I was the exact same way. A huge Final Fantasy player, love JRPGs, probably next to Souls likes. That's probably my favorite genre of games. I absolutely love them. But I bounced hard off
Yeah.
of Xenoblade 2. I was like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense.
Dude, that was exactly me. I played 3D on, now granted, I played the 3DS version because I
Yeah.
didn't want to set up a Wii at the time and the Switch version hadn't come out yet. And I was
Mhm.
just like, dude, like this just ain't it. Like, I don't know what it was, but like same experience.
was
So okay, so
so-
sell me on 3. So sell me on 3.
So I would actually probably sell you on 2 first.
Okay.
Because 2 has, so 1 has its own thing. 3 follows 1 in terms of mechanics. 2 kind of sits in the middle. And I feel like 2 is probably the most approachable. And if you get a hold of 2, get through 2, which you can do it doesn't have to take 100 hours. I think my first playthrough was 38 hours, which
Okay.
isn't
That's not terrible.
Which isn't egregious.
That's very digestible for sure.
Yeah, because you don't have to do a lot of the side content. You can, but same kind of deal, especially
But these
on
are Nintendo games. There's no platinum.
There's
to go
no
after.
Yeah, I know.
I have no incentive to burn through all the extra stuff.
Yeah,
So
I'm right there with you.
I just play the game to play because I don't have any achievements or trophies.
Yep.
So you can get through it, 38, 40 hours. And it's once you get past that initial learning curve, like it throws everything at you in the first 2 hours, and you're just bombarded with information and stats and do this and then switch to this, and you have to set this attack up with your party and blah blah blah. It's a ton of shit. It takes a little while, but as soon as it clicks, and then you're just running through stomping everything. You can fight stuff way above your level because you know the mechanics. And the story is phenomenal. I absolutely love the story. I would put it up there with some of the best. So I would say I would recommend giving 2 another shot. And if you like it, then go back and play the definitive edition of 1 and then play 3.
Okay.
Benny, do you are you a Xenoblades fan as well? No. Okay.
I
feel like the way that he
know
just
it.
like just
Yeah, I know it because it was such a popular game on the Wii. It was hard to get for a while, and then there was Pandora's Tower, and like there was the trio of the
Last
Impossible Wii
Story.
games. Yeah, I was big into like finding them and having them, and that's really it. I never played them.
a true collector.
It's cool for anybody that plays them. It's not for me.
Yeah, I hear you.
Well, I've moved from very skeptical to slightly curious. So if there's
He's in the positives now.
Yeah, if there's a chance to have it settle into somewhere, probably not this year because this year is just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm interested.
Yeah, it's funny because you mentioned like 2 is digestible, and if you liked it, go to 1. I don't know what it is. There's something deep inherently in my genetic makeup that tells me that I can't. I'm not allowed to play games. Like people are like, you should just play Mass Effect 2. Don't worry about 1, or just maybe skip to 3 and watch like a YouTube video about the other 2. But deep down, I'm like, that's not how it was supposed to be done. And if I'm not going to do it the right way, then why am I even trying? So I don't know.
So I agree with you on that. But with Xenoblade, they're totally separate. 2 is a completely
I thought it was like a
story. Totally different characters, completely different. I mean, it's the same.
It's just the world is shared, right?
Yeah,
the universe.
Yeah, and so the characters in 2 do come back in 3, and characters, there are like call outs to characters in 1, but playing 2 without knowing those characters, I didn't care. Like it wasn't something that I was missing. You interact with the characters in 2. I have no idea who they are. The game doesn't expect you to, and it introduces them. But then when I went back and played 1, I was like, oh, holy shit, I know that guy.
Gotcha.
But it's very, very loose. It's almost like Easter eggs more than anything else. But then 3, you'll be lost if you haven't played the others. You can't start with 3. I mean, you can do whatever you want, but you should not start with 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get that.
That's what I've heard too. I've heard about that as well. Similar things, but yeah. Okay. Understood.
Benny, what are you playing right now? You said 10th playthrough of RE4.
I'm taking a break. My brain, I'm very scatterbrained. I could probably play 11 to 12 games at a time for some reason.
Wow.
Okay.
I'm going to throw you off because you're not going to expect this game, and this is a game that Tyler hates, and he hates it. He hates it anytime I bring it up.
Stop it.
I am. I'm a hardcore Fortnite player.
Stop.
Oh wow. Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. That's
not,
reasonable. Why Tyler would feel that way.
and somebody that hated it for many years. I started playing it. We don't like to bring it up, but when the pandemic happened,
it's okay.
Everybody
Safe
was
space.
staying home and all that stuff, and it actually helped me get close with a friend that we kind of lost touch with. So we
Very cool.
played it for like a full season. Heavy. Last year was pretty much just me. This year I've like calmed down, but I played it a lot and I was playing a lot of solo. And it just, I don't know. I found something interesting in trying to get good at it because I always felt I was horrible at it.
Yeah.
And I've gotten decent, like I casually throw it on like maybe twice a week now. And I
Now
can
you're
get
like, when
10
did I become
kills
such
in
a
a match
badass?
and I'm happy.
Yeah.
But I stick with my single player stuff for the most part. Tyler and I spend a little bit of time with PSVR when we can, and we started playing a little bit of
After the fall.
After Fall. Yeah. And
Okay.
that we had so much fun with it. We had to get our headset situation working, but it's hilarious to like it was one point he couldn't talk, but he heard me. So you just kept seeing the character go.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
I'm like, you hear me? This is awesome. But for me, Dead Island 2 is what I'm jumped into now.
Yeah.
We didn't get a review copy, so I picked it up on my own. It's okay. It's not to me, it's not Dead Island. Why are we calling it Dead Island? It takes place in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I'm saying
It's not an island, guys.
Nope.
But
Incorrect. That's actually incorrect.
playing that, Jedi Survivor, I'm jumped into dealing with the glitches. And then
What are you
there's a
playing
game
on?
called Someday You'll Return. Jedi Survivor I'm playing on PlayStation and it crashed 20 minutes into the game.
Man, I
Just
thought it was just
hearing
the PC
about this.
stuff.
No, yeah.
No, I heard
it's-
PlayStation's rough right now. One of my
it's
buddies texted me
rough.
earlier today, and they're saying like frame drop all over the
Yeah,
place, screen
yeah.
tearing all over the place. Like,
I love it.
My buddy got
The
6
core.
hours in and it crashed and wiped his save data. He had
No!
nothing. Yep, no
Dude.
progress whatsoever. He booted it back up and had to start over. He was like, no,
dude,
I'm just not
that
gonna
was
play this.
Cyberpunk to me. Cyberpunk crashed on me twice in under an hour, and I was like, okay, game, you have instructed me to not trust you anymore. So
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not playing you anymore.
I did
You
the
know?
same thing. I got it at launch. And believe it or not, it actually broke my speakers. I had
What?
external speakers and it crashed and had this crazy glitch and it shot this audio to the speakers that blew both of my speakers out. I had to buy new speakers. And I was
That
like,
sucks.
nah.
That sucks.
So I uninstalled and gave it a shot again like 2 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
when the
Benny,
anime came out.
you're saying in spite of the glitches, though, Jedi Survivor is still speaking to you?
I'm loving it. I'm loving the core of what the game is, and I'm not a huge fan of EA, and this is what I'm expected from them as far as performance.
Mhm.
But the context, the story, it's enough. Like the patch is supposed to be out tomorrow. I'm holding off. I'll let it patch. We'll see what happens.
Awesome.
It's playable, but obviously, who wants to deal with crashing when you're in the midst of wanting to play a game that you're like involved in the story and you want to like really learn more?
Totally.
Because like it's brutal. Like the big thing that they added that people wanted was dismemberment. Like I don't need the gore, but like it when you're in it, it makes sense.
yeah,
You know?
yeah, of course.
And like
I
to be
need it.
able to force grab somebody, hit them with the saber, and just see a limb go flying. It's just not something you've really seen in Star Wars.
It's one of the
You know,
biggest reasons
and-
I bounced off the first game.
I
I
also
never
bounced
finished
off the
it.
first game for literally very similar reasons because it was just immersion breaking to me. It's just
Yeah,
like for some reason
terribly.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a gore person, right? It's just like
Right.
it's a lightsaber, man. Like,
I mean,
I've
I
seen
I
it
love
in the
gore,
movies. I know,
but
right? I'm a big gore fan, actually. No, I mean, like I don't know. And the first game too is like a little like I expected a little bit more like Star Wars, but Souls kind
Yeah.
of like combat, and
Yeah,
it felt
yeah,
way
yeah.
like
It was
I don't know what the word
clunky.
is, choppy.
well,
and,
they're
I did
trying
not like it.
to take inspiration, I think,
yeah.
because I think you get a blaster in this, so it's gonna feel I
Oh,
think a little more like Bloodborne.
Interesting.
Okay.
From what I've seen, he gets like quick 1 shot, 2 shots, like you
But even the
would with that.
Bloodborne, like those weapons were still kind of meant to be shot in close quarters, wasn't it? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah, to stagger and
Yeah.
to like to get yourself into the. I think that's
Kinda-
what they're gonna try to do with Star Wars too. I've seen
Okay,
a
that's
couple
kinda
of
cool.
images where he has that, but yeah,
Okay.
like again, the dismemberment I think just brings more to the what they're doing with the combat,
yeah.
and I don't know if he's gonna go dark side, but he's like ruthless. Like 5
Nice.
minutes in, he's like holding them and in the chest and slicing the leg. Like it just.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
can
I like
tell
that.
they're going more
Right.
into it.
That's
Like-
But,
that to me. What is at Star Wars? Like I couldn't
well, that's
play. I
like
couldn't
it
play the
doesn't
first
need
one.
to be
Hitting a stormtrooper 13
disgusting.
times with a lightsaber,
Yeah.
and just leaving
Right.
like a little burn on his armor. Like no,
I mean, even in like
Right.
Hogwarts Legacy, and you go down and beat up these poachers, and you're just like, for some reason, this kid who just murders people and he's okay with it. Like, that's cool. I'm okay with that. We should have that in Star Wars too. Like, why not?
exactly.
because you're given the choice at that point.
Right.
I mean, if you want
Yeah.
gore, you play a game like Dead Island, which is what
Yeah,
I
right.
wanted. The reason I wanted to segue is because the one thing I will give that game is the dismemberment and like the way the decaying of the characters. It's something you haven't seen. Like
Yeah.
you can start attacking them and you're watching like the jaw like literally just come off if you hit
Cool.
it a certain way and then it's hanging. I've never
Gross.
seen that kind of mechanic. But
Yeah.
then there was at one point where I threw like acid, the clothes start like melting off of them, and then you start seeing the skin melt off. So
Neat.
it's
Actually, that's
yeah,
actually
it's-
pretty cool. Actually,
Yeah,
it's
that is
interesting, you know, how you just see
Yeah.
them decaying. Usually it's like just a quick animation and then
You've piqued
You know,
my
it's a
interest
puddle
in
of
Dead
something
Island.
and-
I wasn't.
Yeah,
interested
I also-
before, but
I had no interest in Dead Island until you just mentioned
and
possibility.
it's hard.
Like,
yeah,
It's
like
hard. I
acid
keep
on people.
dying. I'm
Yeah.
dying a lot.
That's just because you're bad at video games, man.
and Los Angeles is a hard place to live, so it makes sense. You know.
Now, it
I'm
is
sorry.
technically like a PS4 game, though,
Damn.
right? Like I heard that it does have a lot of like load screens and things like that. Is that
Ye-
true?
I've only gotten to like a second segment and I saw a screen. I'm like, am I playing a PS2 game? We're going
Yeah.
into this next zone. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, are you kidding me right now? I
Yeah,
will
I
bet
feel
I have to say one really negative thing. Sorry, developers, if you ever end up seeing this. There are no reflections in any aspect of the mirrors.
Mm.
You just walk by and it's unfortunately really bad rendered
Mhm.
of what you see behind you.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
not
I
only
see.
do you not see a shadow or anything, it just looks yeah. I was,
That's- nobody has an
jarring.
excuse
that's,
for
That's
that.
immersion breaking.
Duke Nukem Forever had good mirrors. All right, everybody
Yeah.
else can have good mirrors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
taking a look at yourself pissing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was another fantastic game that sat in development for a long time.
Too
Mm.
long.
Yeah.
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 Well, again, this one is a whole nother developer at this point.
No,
So
yeah,
I will commend them for the fact that one, you got it put out.
Mhm.
The game got released. So
Yeah.
at least we live in a world where we can say that Island 2 exists. But
yeah.
you know, it comes with I think any game that has that development cycle.
Yeah, it was like, is it
Gonna have those
4 years
shortcomings.
too late? Maybe it's 4 years too late. Who knows? You know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
They picked
Yeah.
a weird year to put it out. You put it out in the peak of survival horror in the last 10 years. Where
Yeah.
you're getting 2 remakes.
I was
of
going to say
two
you're
of the
coming
best
after Dead
survival
Space and
horror games
RE4. Yeah, right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And then you still have Horizon. People are still like really getting into Horizon now. It's a tough
because
competitive market,
they
but it's still selling.
Didn't play it because Horizon is the worst at putting their games out. Like
They picked the
why would
worst
you
Something that we
go
games.
against-
also admit. Yes, it's very true.
Oh my god! Why would you
Yeah.
try to compete with Elden Ring, and then compete
Yeah.
with
And
God
Breath of the
War
Wild.
first time and Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, I
People-
chose-
but people still play it. It's crazy.
Well,
you
now,
know?
Well, do
yeah.
you still
Right.
play it? Yeah. One of our guys on one of our girls on the podcast, she's been playing. She's been a diehard like Horizons fan for a long time, and she's saying like the new content is like awesome. Really enjoying it.
I mean, it's an amazing looking game. I force myself to play. I haven't finished the first
Yeah.
one. I have the
neither.
second one. Haven't finished it either.
Same.
I'll put
Yeah.
it on. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
Looks good.
yeah.
But I
Yeah,
it looks
right.
real
can't-
pretty,
Yeah.
but I get pretty bored pretty fast.
I
I've
was
never
able-
finished.
Yeah. I platinumed the first game, but it was absolutely like an autopilot kind of thing. It's
Yeah.
like I've got some kind of YouTube rolling on my phone next to me, like listening to something, watching something, and I'm just kind of like going through the
Yeah,
motions,
secondary.
you know?
Yeah.
Fully.
Tyler, we have that saying. We evil within it. You kind of force
Yes.
yourself.
Oh my god,
So-
dude.
It's called
That-
hate playing.
I actually like genuinely feel bad that I never finished that game, but I was so can we curse here?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I was so fucking bored when I was playing that game. Like once I had to go back through the open world and there's like those bigger enemies that you have to like stealth up to, I was like,
Nope.
fuck this. I was like, I'm
Yeah.
so done. Like, because then if you die, then it's like, okay, now I have to like re-stealth the fucking open world again. It's like, bro, I'm out. Like, I'm so out on this. And it's a shame because I am like I am your target demographic. It's like, if
Yes.
you're going to sell your game, you're selling it to me, you know? Oh gosh.
Yep.
Yeah. That
And
was really
that's
disappointing.
why we penned that term from a fellow editor of the show, and Gaming Age, Paul. He literally forced himself to try to play the game, and I don't think he ever got through it. And I said, I evil wind it, I evil within it. I got through it, and
Yeah.
any game that I've played after that, I just felt that I had to, or obligation of a review, like where you need enough context. I guess
Yeah.
I'm evil withinning it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
here's the thing: it's like I've like I think we call it like hate playing. I've hate played a lot of games in my time. You know,
Yeah.
most recently was Valkyrie Elysium. Bad game, bad
Really?
game. Yeah, but I've just pushed through it because I was like, you know what? It was one of those things where I was like, once I started it, it's like you can see the end, and it's like the only thing that's separating me from like finishing and platinuming this game is just doing it. Like it's not like there's no skill gap or anything like that. It's like I just need to do it, right?
Yeah.
And I'll do that, and I've done it a couple of times. Outriders was another infamous one. That's
Ugh.
not a very good game.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
Yeah,
2 hours and I was done.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks.
So imagine if you said, Justin, you said before, like the target demographic, like imagine if even for like achievements or trophies, imagine if these developers had like a way to find the people who do literally that stuff and have
Yeah.
like they actually care about it, and then they have a means to ask the question to them. Would
It'd be
you
really
want to
cool.
do these kind of things? Crit rate. What's up, guys?
Somebody should make a
There you go.
website.
That's it.
Yeah, somebody should make a
Perfect
website.
segue. Perfect.
Yep. All right.
Absolutely.
So here's what we'll do. Benny is tapped. He's got to head back to work. But if
Yeah.
you guys are cool with it, I'm gonna stick around and we'll talk about your experience at PAX, and kind of your roadmap for crit rate going forward and get some
Sure.
of that. Some
yeah,
of that.
for sure. Yeah, we've got another, Justin. What do we have? Another like
20 minutes or so, yeah, and then we
Yeah.
got a hard stop.
Perfect.
Okay.
Nope, yep, same here. So we're good. All right,
Perfect.
brother. Benny.
Ideal.
Benny, it was a pleasure meeting
Benny,
you, man.
true pleasure.
too.
We'll be chatting
Have a
again
great
soon,
one,
I'm
guys.
sure.
Later, man.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Later.
Hey, bud. All right.
Never had anybody sign off in the middle of a podcast before. That was a
Right.
interesting experience. Like, it feels interesting. Now it's just us.
I know.
What's
The
up,
teacher
Tyler?
has left the room. So now
Yeah, right.
now we can be
Kids
free.
can play.
Yes. But yeah, so no, seriously, PAX. I have never been able to attend a PAX.
Never.
Oh,
Yeah, so I
Should,
was
man. It's a good
originally
time.
located in Ohio. And couldn't make any of the places. Now I'm in Louisiana, so it's
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah, there's really no way to get
Yeah.
there. But Benny's in Jersey, so he's been.
Oh, that's
and obviously
fantastic.
you
Wait,
guys
we're
met
in-
Stan, and yeah,
We're in Jerseys yet.
I don't know.
Oh, we'll follow up with them afterwards because we are also in Jersey.
Yeah.
Really?
We should grab drinks sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
yeah,
never
so-
met in person. Fun fact.
Is
Benny
that
and
right?
Ever?
Ever, not one time.
Wow.
See,
We've worked
if you went
together
to
for
PAX
8 years.
If you went to PAX, you would meet in person.
Yep.
I
Since
will say,
2015.
oh, go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just about to say, since 2015, when we started doing crit rate, you knew Benny and have never seen him in person. That's like
Mm-mm.
egregious, man.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
Yep,
wild.
Not one time.
And I will put this out there. So Justin and I have been to like, I mean, it sounds like a flex, but it's not a flex. But we've been to like almost every like game convention that takes place in the U.S.
It's a subtle flex.
E3, E3, PAX East, PAX West, myriad retro game shows, all this kind of stuff. I would say if you're going to travel for something, PAX is absolutely worth traveling for.
Yeah.
It is the new like standard for what this kind of stuff is. I mean, we're probably the same age, so like we know that E3 was like the place to be for the
Yeah.
longest time, and it was. But the fact is that it's just not going to be what it was. Or how we learned of it. And PAX is absolutely filling those shoes, and it's just such a cool place to like not only like play new games that you've never seen before, but then be exposed to a lot of the AAAs are going to be there or are typically there. And
Yeah.
then it's just awesome to meet the people. So
But
if
yeah,
you,
on the
if you
side of
were
just
playing it, I would go for it. And I think
On the side
East
of-
is probably better than West at this point.
on the side of the software side, like we've been also to GDC as well. And like as far as networking events, and like Tyler, this is coming from a place of like we also were trying and are doing our best to like also be
This
in
is
the industry.
inside
because-
baseball. Sorry,
Yeah, right.
listeners.
But like, but it
Yeah.
is just fascinating. Like we've been going to PAX since 2013 every year afterwards, minus like the 2 years of COVID. We even made it to the very final big one in 2020 before everything was shut down. And like during that entire time, I would say like we've met people in the industry, not even just people in the media space, but like we've met people in the voice acting space and the development space who started back in 2013 of just trying to get these jobs. And then now we're seeing them literally a month ago. And some of them are getting like AAA like level gigs. And it's a celebration. Like there's a family behind the booths, regardless of whatever banner you're waving for whatever company. It's like you still see the people who are constantly trying to apply their passion into an industry that they really, really want to be a part of. And it's so heartwarming. You know what I mean? It is truly like we call them the convention family, but truth be told, it is like a family. Like people still look out for each other and help each other get connected. You just got to kind of put yourself out there. So Tyler, you got to come to a PAX, man.
Yeah,
I will go to a PAX.
we will be part of your gaming family that you meet out there.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So we will. Yeah. We've talked about it. We've talked about trying to make it work. Just with the distance, and I've got, I'm
Joey's
married. I've
pressed for
got 3
time.
kids. Yeah. Three
Three
kids.
kids.
I've got a
Oh, man.
dog. I've got a saltwater fish tank. Like it's hard to go anywhere and do anything.
Yo, I've had
Yeah.
the saltwater fish tank. I was on that grind for a while. Oof, it is beautiful. But man, is it so maintenance high, like high maintenance. It's ridiculous.
It is a lot of work.
See, that's what I was going to say
work.
about the kids. It's a beautiful thing, but man, is it a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Fish
mine
tank is all
are
I can talk about.
7, 5, and 3.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. I have
hands are
one
full.
son. He's 21
Yeah.
months, so he's still very little, but it is certainly a lift, and you got to be a good dad sometimes, and leaving
Yeah.
for extended periods of time is typically not part of the criteria.
Yeah. And then add to it, my wife is the primary breadwinner. I'm a stay-at-home dad with the kids right now.
Cool.
And do
Cool.
this, and I've got freelance jobs that I do on the side, but she's the primary earner, so makes leaving her with the kids even harder.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah. No,
take days off
understandable.
work so I can go hang out and play
With my
video
friends
games.
at a video game
Yeah.
convention. Okay,
Exactly. Yeah.
Makes sense to
Yeah,
me. Makes
no,
sense
it's
to me.
understandable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
okay, yeah, go for it. Tell me about doing crit rate at conventions and how that's received and everything else.
For sure. So I'll kick us off. There's a lot to go over, so we'll try to keep it truncated. But so we've taken crit rate to a couple of smaller conventions. Like we brought it to a Smash tournament called the Big House in Detroit. We brought it out to Too Many Games, which is like a retro convention here in Philadelphia. So it's made smaller appearances just as sort of like small test cases to see how people would respond there. But PAX East was really the big show. Like that is where we fully came out. We had a booth there. We really, turned up as much as we can to see how people would react to it. And the response we got has just been phenomenal. Really, the objective while we were there was pretty novel. What we were hoping to do was we got as much information about the show before we got there as far as what games would be presented there. And then we created an entire subsection of the website that was just the PAX games. So this was every game that was playable on the show floor. Little did we know when we got the information from the PAX people beforehand, they gave us a list of about 40 games. In truth, there was about 250 games that we only found out the day that we got there. So Justin and I are running around with our cell phones, snapping pictures of booths. So then later that night, we could go back to the website and hand make every page that people could go to. But the point of doing that was we wanted to create sort of this closed environment experience where anyone that was at PAX, if they came to our booth, they would take our survey, get an enamel pin that represented the house that they belonged to.
Oh, really?
And
cool.
then as they represent or as they went throughout PAX, they would rate games, and for each of the games they rated, we had like thresholds where if they rated like 5 games, they would come back and get like a free drawstring bag, and then like a sword, and then a like a t-shirt and all this kind of stuff. So there was this little incentive loop for people to come back and review games. But what ended up happening was people were going out and playing games, and then we had this 86
86, yeah.
This 86-inch TV that was at our booth that was a live leaderboard that showed each of the 5 houses and what games were most highly rated amongst those houses. And we just kind of wanted to do that to show what was happening in real time and show like the activity of what was going on.
Yeah,
like the concept being demonstrated in like a tangible way. But what what we didn't realize immediately at the time, or I guess not to the extent that it was being accomplished, was what this essentially became was a hit list for the people that were at the event. So if you were in Incendiary, you only have so much time while you're there. What games do you play? Well, you stop by the Crit Rate booth and you see the top 5 games that are rated for your house, and now you know exactly where to go. So it became this really wonderful loop of people like coming to the booth, getting their house, finding some interesting games that they might want to play, going out, playing them, rating them, come back. And over the course of the weekend, we were able to get over 5,000 new users onto the website, and then cumulatively rated or submitted over 19,000 ratings while we were there. It was unbelievable to see how well it responded. I'll pass it over to Justin now. I mean, there's much more to talk about, but that was kind of like the high level. Like, this is what we were doing out there.
That's amazing. You guys are some marketing geniuses. That's fantastic.
Thanks. Justin and I both come from a marketing background. So I guess, thank you for the praise. I really do appreciate it.
It's very validating. We'll take that on a Monday morning.
Yeah. It was literally this idea of like, well, we've done shows before for one of our other companies. And it's kind of always been in our philosophy to like make the entire convention our booth, not just the one small booth. And here, like the goal was to impress upon them the concept of crit rate. It's a long-winded mouthful of words that we have to shoot into your ears somehow for you to feel what we're trying to feel. And not many people understand it right away. So it's like, well, how do we do it? And it's like, well, people really love pins and we love the ideas of the houses. So let's create like an initiation pin to welcome them into the house after they've taken the test. And then it's like, okay, how do we get them to rate games? And then after they rate games, will anybody even care? The question is, the answer to that is, well, we defaulted to no, nobody's going to care. So in this case, it's like, well, we got to get some stuff to give them. Foam swords was one, and then drawstring and the t-shirts. But what really changed for us was when we were there and we saw people doing it outside of the prizes. At one point we ran out of prizes, and at one point people didn't even care about the prizes. They didn't even care about the pin. They were just happy to see what kind of gamer they were, find out what kind of gamers their friends were, and then would come back to our booth to tell us how ridiculous the idea and like the summaries were and how accurate they were between their group of friends. And then we started learning like, well, even though, my friends are Bravadiers and I might be like a advantagist, I still find their opinions interesting because I see where that's coming from in their competitive space. Right.
Yeah.
So after this, it really started like resonating with us like, oh my God, Justin, I think we might be onto something. I think we might be like all these 8 years of trying to make this happen was not always a waste of time. And it was even more validating when some of the developers came over and they were like, yo, how do we get our game on your website? And 2, what are you? And 3, oh, okay, I understand what you're doing. Can we get the feedback? Like the reason why we have to jump off in 10 minutes or so is because we have to prepare a deck for another developer that we're talking to. We batched up the data and we presented back to them just to show them their performance at PAX, just to talk to them about the idea and the concept. So this is kind of like the aftermath of like what people were saying about their game, because they're really fascinated about the feedback and they're there primarily to get feedback from people, especially the indie devs. So it was most interesting to us because that was always like an inkling thought, but like we had no idea how that would even come to be. We were more like in it to see if like the people, like the gamers, the attendees would like care about us. But then we started talking to the developers, and the publishers were interested because they were like, is this a way that we could find certain game testers with specific different varying traits? And like that's when things started really opening up for us. And then when we finally came home, exhausted over a 6-day long grind of like getting our team there and then doing the booth and then sitting there for like 8+ hours at a time, not eating lunch, just talking to people. Justin and I sat down and we looked at each other. We're like, dude, there's so much work to do. We have so much stuff to do, but it's such a good problem to have. But it was really interesting. And I was really happy with the turnout at the show. And everything worked so cohesively, which honestly, like when we reviewed the results of PAX and like how all of the days went, like if any one part was missing, it wouldn't have worked, we created these lanyards with these postcards that you would wear, and on the front of it, the postcard would have like a little dotted line of where you would put your PAX badge on top of. But before you did that, it showed you a little QR code that was like, take this test, get your house, come to the booth for a pin. And then when you're wearing it, if you flip it upside down, it'll show you a little thing that says flip for the map, or scan this barcode for a full list, a full directory of all the games at PAX with their booth numbers. And then when you looked up the game, you'd flip the card over and you would have a legit map of the show floor with the booth numbers. So you can use your phone and the card to designate where to go next. It's like all the Bravadiers are telling me to play this game. Where is it? Booth 13085. Okay, that's right here. That's where I'm going. And then we started learning from the attendees, no less. They were like, this needs to be at the front of PAX because this is helping me min-max my time at PAX. With 250 games, how in the world am I supposed to play any of these in one day, all of these in one day, let alone 4 days, like let alone 4 days, let alone one day, right? People who have only 1 day passes, what game should I play? This was helping them see that. And I didn't even consider that to be a thing at the time until people were telling us.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, looking at it from like the reviews side, that would be such a cool tool for PR to have when they're sending out those PR blast emails. Like, hey, are you, if it gains traction, they can ask, hey, this might be for you. Here's what to do. That would be such a huge tool for PR companies.
Oh, for sure. And it's been really cool, actually. So at the end of the event, what we did was we tallied all of the ratings across all of the houses, and we actually handed out these little like ascendiary game of the show, vantageist game of the show. And when we brought it over to them, now we've seen those developers of those titles like using that in some of their marketing language, which has been just awesome. Like they're reposting it on Twitter and all this kind of stuff. It was just really nice to see that, they found the value in this and then wanted to, continue that messaging through, which is, it's just really encouraging, especially like Justin said. We've been working on this for like 8 years. We've kind of just been in our hyperbolic time chamber thinking we're doing the right thing. And then now we're on the other side, and it seems like it's connecting with people. And that's the most important thing, is just to really feel like you belong in these groups, right? Like these are your people, and the types of opinions and recommendations that you're getting do jive with your tastes as well. And that's really what we've been hearing back from our new users, which has just been wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I am definitely signing up when we're done with this call. Seriously, this is the coolest fucking thing. And the way you guys have explained it, it makes so much sense. Like, awesome. I can't believe that this is just now a thing, right? Like looking at it now, it's like, why hasn't this happened before?
And so
why
Tyler,
hasn't this been a thing?
When you do take the test and you do fall into your house, right? One thing to note is that the way that game ratings are generated is literally with the philosophy, the lunch table philosophy again, right? It's like, imagine you're sitting at a table with 10 other Tylers. Out of 10 of them, 7 of them are saying that this game is worth your time. So out of 7 out of 10, like, would you play that game? Would you consider playing that game? That's kind of up to you, but that's why we call it a crit rate, because it would essentially boil down to, it's kind of like a vote up, vote down system, where, and Justin usually explains this, but there are three ratings. One, there's a leave it, which is, this game isn't for me. I would probably have told my prior self to leave this game, right? The like it is, I like this game. I would recommend you trying this game. And then the love it is, I really like this game. This is very important for you to play, right? So the love it's have a very slight heavier weight to them, but they're basically like a super like, right? Okay. And the idea is you only have one vote, but over the course of like all these other people voting, how many of them in your house are saying that this is worth your time and worth not or not worth your time? So if you're to see a game that even says like a 68%, that means that this is a 68% chance that this will be a hit for you, versus let's say a 30% chance where you could still like the game, but this would be a 30% chance that it would be a hit, right? And it's all this recommendation and percentage chances, basically.
Yeah, and that was a big part. Just to underline that a little bit, that was an important concept that we were playing with when we created the percentage, because we didn't want it to be confused with like a quality marker, right? Because tools like like traditional reviews and Metacritic and all these things, they absolutely have a place, because those are typically marking a game based on quality, like how functionally, mechanically sound, how narratively sound is this game, right? So that absolutely has a place. But again, those qualities might not necessarily align with your motivations as a player. So there might be a game that gets a 90 whatever on Metacritic, but it just might not jive with you, right? And then in the same token, you might get something that's like a 70 on Metacritic, but it's like, 100% on crit rate. So we kind of wanted it to live alongside traditional reviews and Metacritic and stuff. It's certainly not in any way meant to sort of like replace this in any way. It really is a complementative feature.
Yeah.
And just sort of another data point for users to look at and say like, okay, well, my time is valuable, my money's valuable, and I want to make sure that I'm making a good decision here. Like, yeah, I mean, you as well, like we're parents, right?
Yeah.
Time becomes so much more valuable the older that you get, that it's like, if I'm like your average consumer, I want to make a decision. I want to play a game that's going to feel really fulfilling. That's going to be something that I'll enjoy and feel like, okay, money well spent, right? And
Yeah.
this is just another data point to help you reach that decision.
No, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I know you've got your next thing, but we've talked for an hour and a half, and I feel like we've been talking for like 5 minutes. There's,
Yeah, dude,
we could definitely keep going.
there's definitely more here, so I want to try to get some more time with you guys here in the coming months and
Sure.
have you back on, and we'll update with the houses that Benny and I fall into. But
Yeah.
for now, I'll let you guys go. We'll end the show. I'll put links to Crit Rate in the video description and the podcast description, and I think you guys have a podcast on Apple Podcasts too. Yeah,
We do, yeah. So first off, thank you so much for your time, Tyler. This has really been a phenomenal conversation. If anyone wants to find out what we're doing, we're at critrate.io. That's where you can take the survey, try it yourself. We're also on Twitter, critrate_gaming. And then, you can find our podcast, the Crit Rate Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you get podcasts. We publish every Thursday, and then we have kind of like one-off guest podcasts as well, so you can check us out there. But this has been awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, man.
Yep,
Absolutely.
Right. See you guys.